The Egghead Island arc has finally ended, and the Straw Hats are just about ready to set off on their next big adventure. They just had to make a quick pit stop in Elbaf, meet some more giants, figure out who that mysterious character was at the end of chapter 1124, get Usopp his next and possibly final power up, hopefully in the form of him mastering his observation hockey. That or a big hammer. I'd love if it was a big hammer. And then they'll be off to join the other big shots like Shanks, Blackbeard, and my second favorite Yonko, Buggy, in the race to find the world's greatest treasure. But before they can do that, there's going to be a big choice that Luffy is going to have to make. Something so important that even the search for the One Piece is going to have to take a back seat until it's settled. In fact, it's so important that I'd argue that Luffy couldn't succeed in finding the treasure unless he makes the absolute right decision here. And that is choosing between his fellow member of the Worst Generation, Jewelry Bonney, and one of the last two remaining Vegapunk satellites, Lilith. Which one of them will be joining him on his journey and become the final member of the Straw Hat Pirates? I honestly can't believe we're here again. It's been almost a full year since I made my last video talking about the possibility of a new member joining the crew. Since then, we've essentially eliminated 3 of the most likely candidates, and now we're down to possibly just 2. Yamato is just now starting her pilgrimage across Wano, and based on her pace in the cover story, it's going to be a while before she finishes her journey. And even when she does, it's still a toss-up on whether or not when she's finally done, if she will actually end up leaving the country. Carrot, as much as I didn't want to believe it, unfortunately seems to have actually taken up the role that was forced upon her as the new leader of Zou, which means that unfortunately she also must now drop out of the race to become the next Nakama. Stussy is a tricky one. She still had the potential to join up until the latest chapter as she went off on her own instead of rejoining Kaku and Lucci, but after her tearful breakup with the only friend she had, she has yet to resurface in the manga. Which is honestly really disappointing because her story of having nothing to live for post Vegapunk's death and trying to find what it means for her to really be alive is an extremely interesting journey and one that I think Luffy and the Straw Hats are best suited to help her on. Technically, there is still a small chance for her to join, and if she were to be revealed to have somehow snuck aboard the Sunny before they left the island, then I say that she's most likely the prime candidate. But if she was going to show up, I feel as though chapter 1124 would have been the prime chapter for it to happen, considering the somber mood everyone was in for a majority of that chapter, but unfortunately she didn't, so as of this moment, Stussy joining the crew is very unlikely. And Vivi is admittedly also still up in the air, both metaphorically and literally, but with each and every chapter that she gets to make a special guest appearance in, it feels as if Oda is having too much fun writing the back and forth between her and Morgan. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he decided to keep her in that limbo for the foreseeable future until he needs her to play a much bigger role in the overall story. But we no longer have the time to wait. The finale to this adventure is quickly approaching and we need to make a decision beforehand. So between Bonney and Lilith, the last 2 in contention for the 10th spot on the future Pirate King's crew, which one should Luffy choose? Well, let's think about it. Both are in the perfect position to join because neither have a place to return to after their brief adventure with the crew ends. Bonney may have reunited with her father, but sadly Kuma is not long for this world. Because we have to remember, Kuma died 2 years ago signing away his life to save Bonney from the sapphire scale disease, and since the events of Sabaody has only been alive in the technical sense, living as a mostly robotic slave programmed to obey the world nobles. Then somehow, fueled by the desire to protect his daughter, Kuma managed to bring just a bit of himself back, just enough to travel from the current home base of the revolutionaries all the way to Egghead, also that he could save her from being killed off by a giant spider. How he even knew she was in danger is still a mystery, and something I'm hoping Oda will reveal in the coming chapters. But regardless, Kuma's revival is likely only temporary. His journey to Egghead and the events that transpired after he got there took a heavy toll on his body, draining the last bit of energy he had to the point where almost immediately after he punched Saturn, he couldn't even move on his own anymore, having to be carried from then until they made it on board the giant ship. At this point, Kuma's body is done, and even if Frankie were able to repair it, the question still remains if there's even enough of him left to really say he's alive again. So once we get to Elbaf, just like how we had a funeral for the Mary at the end of Ennie's lobby, I can feel the same tearful goodbye being held for Kuma. And if that ends up happening, now that we know what we know about Kuma and the fact that Oda was able to make the entire fandom cry over a boat, I doubt there's going to be a single dry eye out there during that scene. And if you're someone who does end up crying during that funeral, then you might want to be on the lookout for a teenage boy with a sword that looks like a key, because you might actually be heartless. Regardless though, Kuma's final day is upon us, but at least before departing this world, he not only got to see the god he always tried to be like, but also knows that he's leaving Bonney behind in the care of said god. On the other hand, Lilith is in a similar situation because while not exactly the same, she did also lose who technically was her father. In fact, she not only lost her father, but also 4 of her siblings, was driven from her home, and is now cut off from her family heritage, all at the hands of her other sister betraying them for wealth and status. Bonney at least has a chance that Kuma might stay alive post-Egghead, no matter how unlikely that is, but Lilith, she truly has no one left. Well, not in the physical sense anyway. She does still have each of the other dead Vegapunks talking to her either inside of her earpiece or much creepier inside of her head. So yeah, she is alone, but also not at the same time. But even if they're alive in some sense, she still no longer has a home to go back to. Egghead, or what's left of it, is now under complete control of York and the world government, and if she were even to attempt to step foot back onto the island, she would be executed on sight. So as of right now, Lilith's options are kind of limited. She can choose to stay on Elbaf, which is possibly the safest option out there due to the world government's reluctance to picking a direct fight with the giants, but I don't think it'll be the best fit for her due to the island's lack of technology. She could also choose to travel alone, setting off her own adventure to find a new place to call home, and possibly continuing the main Vegapunk's research into the Void Century. But while it does sound like the much more exciting option, it also does leave her at the mercy of the world government if she is ever discovered. Or she could choose to join Luffy, which is not only the much safer option than traveling alone, considering she would have a literal god protecting her, but will also give her the best opportunity to learn the truth about the Void Century, considering that is already Robin's goal. And not to mention, it's going to be a lot of fun. And Lil strikes me as a Vegapunk who'd most like to have some entertainment in her life. So, back to the original debate, which one will end up joining the crew? Well, both have a very strong reason to set off with the Straw Hats post-Elbaf. And if it was up to me, I say we should forget the number cap that was placed at the beginning of the series, and welcome both of these young ladies onto the crew. To me, that is the ideal outcome here, but unfortunately, that is also highly unlikely. So, in order for us to make a decision, we'll have to dive into the reasons as to why they shouldn't join. And as I was racking my brain trying to come up with reasons for both, I realized that they actually have the same glaring flaw that could stop them. As of the recording of this video, neither Bonney or Lilith have a dream that could be unique to them. Nami wants to create a map of the entire world, Sanji wants to find the All Blue, Usopp wants to become a brave warrior to sea, and so on and so on. Achieving their dreams is a major factor in what pushes each of the Straw Hats to continue on this adventure no matter how long and dangerous it becomes, which is something that these two will have to find in order to feel like they truly belong with the crew. Now for Lilith, this is something that is a bit easier for her to achieve because she already has something that she could work towards that directly connects with the future conflicts and adventures the crew will have post-Elbaf, and that is taking back control of Punk Records from York. In order for Lilith to take back her home from her sister, she'll have to come into conflict with the World Gov, and now that Vegapunk has revealed that the person who finds the One Piece will be able to change the world, the government will play a much more active role in stopping that from happening, which means the Straw Hats will be facing off with the World Gov much more often, leading to them eventually removing the current heads of the World Gov like Imu and Gorosei, and leaving it open for less evil members of the Navy like Kobe to take their place. Which also means that with no protection from the Five Elders, Lilith will be able to retake Punk Records from York. It's possibly the most personal and difficult goal to achieve on the crew, but it would be one unique to just her, which is more than I could say for Bonney, because try as I might, I can't think of what she would want to achieve on her journey, seeing as her main driving goal since she became a pirate was to reunite with Kuma. But on the other side of things, another part of being on the crew is having a strong connection to Luffy and an unyielding belief that he will become king of the pirates, which, while something Lilith could acquire while traveling with the Straw Hats like the other members did, Bonney already has that connection to Luffy going into Elbaf. All throughout Egghead, we've been slowly building up the relationship between Luffy and Bonney to the point where now the two have formed a sort of sibling dynamic. He treats her like the two already have a strong bond, and she looks to him for reassurance and encouragement when she's full of doubt. Not to mention, now that Bonney knows that Luffy is Nika, she already has a very strong belief that he can do whatever he sets his mind to, no matter what stands in his way, and is willing to bet her life on that. So, we have one potential crewmate already set with a goal to achieve on their voyage, but no real strong attachment to Luffy, and another with no current goal, but has as much faith in Luffy as any other member of the crew. Which of these two is the better option? That is a question Luffy is going to have to answer by the end of Elbaf, though knowing him, I doubt he'll put that much thought into it. But let me know in the comments down below, who between these two do you want to join the crew moving forward?